MDK, standing for, well, no one quite knows what it stands for. The most widely accepted meaning is Max Dr. Kurt, but it could also stand for Mission Deliver Kindness from the game's manual, or for those of us who remember the movie Demolition Man, and the meaning I always assumed, Murder, Death, Kill, with many other possible meanings, sort of an inside joke from the developers. Though it got a decent amount of attention, and even scored highly in magazine reviews at the time, MDK is one of those games that has slipped through the cracks of time, nearly forgotten by gamers as time went by. Published by Playmates, and initially developed on the PC by Shiny Entertainment, the house that Earthworm Jim built, the PS1 port was handled by Neversoft Entertainment, who would later go on to make Warbucks off of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise. The first MDK has long been forgotten, and has even been overshadowed by its still overlooked but far more popular BioWare-developed sequel, MDK2, or MDK2 Armageddon for the PS2 port.
Somehow, what was supposed to be a mere 5-day expedition in space to study flange orbits turned into Dr. Fluke Hawkins and his research assistant Kurt staying in space on the Doctor's homemade spaceship for years, thus leaving the Doctor work on his other inventions, one of which being a 6-legged dog that Kurt named Max, but the Doc insists on calling Bones. While in space, Max, is the first to notice the streams on the outer fringes of the solar system. Not until the streams hit Earth did they realize the real purpose of these streams. They were a means of transport for an alien race who call themselves Stream Riders. Led by an alien named Gunter Glut, they have one objective: strip mine the Earth for its rich mineral deposits, bringing down huge mining cities through the streams with which to do it. It's up to Kurt in his special suit, tailor-made by Doc Hawkins, to send the aliens packing.
MDK is an action-focused third-person shooter. The game's general premise is simple. If it moves, shoot at it until it's dead. That oversimplification may make it sound like MDK is a mostly mindless shooter, and the main meat of the gameplay does come down to jump, dodge, and shoot. The levels are designed to keep things fresh, each area having its own specific objectives. Whether the objectives are as simple as kill everything in a, by PS1 standards, impressively large outdoor environment using your sniper helmet to pick off targets in the distance to progress, to even some small puzzle and jumping elements. Each new area has enough thought put into it to keep the action from getting stale, even if all these elements do take a back seat to the action. And when it comes to it, MDK doesn't let up. The only rest it gives you from the exhilarating action, aside from the puzzle and jumping elements, are the loading hallways between each area in the game. And there's even some variety thrown into those by the developers, adding mini-games of sorts on occasion, like a tube sliding game, and even a little bit of snowboarding. But both are a little shallow in nature, not being fleshed out as scenes like that have become since the time MDK came out. But they are nice touches. Since Kurt lives on a homemade spacecraft with Doc and Max, each level starts with Kurt entering the Earth's atmosphere while dodging radar and missiles while collecting power-ups on his way to each huge mine crawler on which the game's levels take place. Kurt doesn't go into each level empty-handed. Though his arsenal isn't the most impressive for a game of this type, his two main weapons are his trusty chain gun, which thankfully has unlimited ammo, and the game's most unique weapon. At any time, Kurt is able to attach his chain gun to his helmet, which turns it into a previously mentioned sniper helmet, allowing you to zoom in and take enemies out from a distance. The sniper helmet is pretty much required for most of the boss fights, and is brought into the level designs at times as a means of progression. But it's also useful to take down tougher enemies from afar. The game even keeps a tally of the headshots you earn in each level. The bullet cam is also a nice touch. Alongside Kurt's chain gun, which you can gain a super chain gun power-up for that gives you 200 rounds that do massive damage in a short time, and his sniper helmet, which has multiple types of ammo, like homing grenade rounds and mortars, Kurt also has a number of other useful items he uses along the way. At his disposal are your standard grenades, the Mighty Hammer, a giant hammer that creates a magnitude 12.9 earthquake, a throwable tornado, a dummy decoy, a self-inflating punching bag with a rather convincing drawing of Kurt on it, drawing all enemy fire towards it until the time runs out, and the world's most interesting bomb. A bomb disguised in a really alluring box that keeps enemies mesmerized until the box opens and blows them up. Suffice to say that despite the serious action MDK has to offer, in typical Shiny fashion, the game has a great mixture of solid gameplay and a good sense of humor. There's even a nod to Earthworm Jim in the game, where hitting icons of Jim's head will send cows flying down on opponents. Groovy! Graphically speaking, MDK has a unique art design. One that's hard to describe in any other way than a trademark Shiny art style. Similar to the ones in games like Earthworm Jim and Wild 9, two other Shiny developed games. Sort of a dark, futuristic, and yet humorous world. It's hard to describe off the top of my head, because I can't really even think of any movies that would have a similar design. I can only describe it as a Shiny art design. The environments have a decent amount of detail in parts, but other times look almost first-gen PS1. Simple colored polygons with no texture maps. But the outdoor environments have a very impressive draw distance, taking the PS1 hardware into consideration. That being said, the visuals really shine in the special effects department, showcasing some of the best special effects to be seen on the PS1. Level 2-7 is a perfect example of the special effects on display in MDK. The game also moves at a blazingly fast speed, with slowdown occasionally rearing its ugly head, but it doesn't affect the gameplay. The explosions look nice, and the enemies have a good amount of detail by PS1 standards. Kurt himself, however, appears to be a two-dimensional sprite. The only time you see a polygonal model of him is during the falling scenes. However, the overall visual package is still solid by today's standards, with its unique art style, eye-pleasing special effects, and blistering frame rate. Controlling Kurt also feels natural. The main movement may have a similar Tomb Raider tank control scheme, but Kurt moves so much faster than Lady Croft. And he also sidesteps in a flash. And for those who dread D-pad controls for movement and aiming, not only are the controls completely customizable, but MDK also supports the old dual analog controller. the one Sony released before the DualShock, meaning that those gamers who are more used to modern control schemes will be more at home with MDK than a lot of other older PS1 games. I personally just use the D-pad, but it's certainly nice to have the option, especially in a PS1 game from 1997. The jumping scenes can sometimes be a small pain as well because of how fast Kurt moves, but they are made more manageable due to Kurt's ribbon parachute. And falling down isn't quite as frustrating in MDK as it is in games like Tomb Raider. That was a really bad Tomb Raider, because Kurt moves so fast.
Alert! Alert! Alert!
The music is also worth mentioning because it actually adds to the unique atmosphere of MDK. But I would expect no less coming from Tommy Tallarico. That's actually how you have to say his name, I'm serious. I'm not really good at describing music, but there's a reason why Tallarico comes so highly rated. And the atmosphere in MDK wouldn't be the same without the music. It fits the game that well. And for those of you who may have a good old-fashioned CD player lying around, you can pop the disc in and hear the entire soundtrack. But whatever you do, don't play track 1. Those of you who have ever put a PS1 disc into a CD player and played the first track know what I'm talking about. Just about the worst sound ever made. Or perhaps to quote the hidden track of one of my personal favorite PS1 games, and forgive me if it isn't word for word. As you can see, this is a PlayStation black disc. Cut number 1 contains computer data, so please, don't play it. But you probably won't listen to me anyway, will you? If MDK has one big flaw, it has to do with its short length. Having only 6 levels, you can actually sit down and play through it in one sitting. However, there are 3 difficulty levels to play through, and a number of hidden areas to find throughout the game. So there's still more to find after your initial playthrough, but once you've found it all and seen it all, there really isn't a whole lot to bring most gamers back. The boss fights are also relatively easy, with the end boss fight being the easiest in the game, which is slightly disappointing. The ending sequence is also a bit of a letdown for those looking for a deep reward for their time invested. But considering the era of gaming that MDK was released in, it's a forgivable flaw. The idea of cinematic story-based gaming wouldn't see full mainstream success until games like Metal Gear Solid and Half-Life hit in 1998, a year or so later than MDK. Previously, the idea of cinematic storytelling was a niche idea found predominantly in role-playing games. The bottom line. MDK may have been long forgotten in the folds of time, overshadowed even by its own nearly forgotten sequel. But with its fast, furious gameplay, well-thought-out level design, unique art style, and great soundtrack, it's still worth going back and playing. Don't let the short length deter you from playing this underrated PS1 gem. MDK is also available on the PC, but my disturbing lack of internet means that I can't easily check to see if the PC version is available on Steam. However, if you're watching this vid, that means you can easily check yourself. And just one quick final note. One thing I did find on this game that is rather disturbing. You know those people who play the demos and then record it and then put it in the game and it's like the worst played demo ever? I would like to nominate this game for the worst played demo ever. Why, Kurt? Why are you shooting at the wall? Why aren't you killing enemies? Why would they put this in the game? Just another little hidden nugget of goodness. Please, do not judge MDK by this poorly played demo. 'Cause if you did, I don't know what to say about that.